Your phone is probably the most intimate object you own. It knows where you sleep. It has access to every conversation you've had in the past several years. It holds photographs of your children, your medical records, your bank accounts, your private thoughts typed out in notes apps at 2 in the morning. It is, in the most literal sense, a complete map of your inner and outer life. Now imagine that someone you have never met, in a country you may never visit, working for a government you have no relationship with, is reading all of it. Right now, in real time, without ever touching your phone, without ever sending you a suspicious link, without leaving any trace that they were ever there. This is not a hypothetical. This is Pegasus. The NSO group was founded in Israel in 2010 by Neve Karmai, Shalev Hulio, and Omri Levy. The name comes from the first letters of the founders' names, plus the word group. From its earliest days, the company positioned itself as a provider of lawful interception technology, sophisticated surveillance tools sold exclusively to vetted government clients for the stated purpose of combating terrorism and serious crime. The pitch was, on its surface, defensible. Governments genuinely do need tools to monitor genuine threats. Terrorists do use encrypted messaging applications. Criminal networks do exploit the privacy features of modern smartphones to coordinate activity that costs lives. There's a real and legitimate market for technology that can penetrate those communications under appropriate legal authority. NSO Group claimed it was serving that market. What investigators eventually discovered was something considerably more complicated. The company's flagship product, Pegasus, was not merely a wiretapping tool. It was, by any technical measure, the most sophisticated piece of offensive surveillance software ever created for deployment at scale. And its capabilities went far beyond anything that could be justified by anti-terrorism rationale. To understand what made Pegasus extraordinary and terrifying, you need to understand how it worked, particularly in its most advanced iterations. Earlier versions of Pegasus required what security researchers call a one-click attack vector. The target would receive a message, an SMS, a WhatsApp message, an email, containing a malicious link. If they clicked the link, the software would silently install itself on the device. This was already remarkably sophisticated compared to conventional malware, but it had one limitation. It required the target to take an action. NSO Group's engineers eliminated that limitation. What they developed instead is what the cybersecurity community calls a zero-click exploit. No link, no attachment, no interaction required whatsoever. The target doesn't click anything, open anything, or acknowledge anything. The malware installs itself by exploiting vulnerabilities in software processes that run automatically in the background of the phone. Processes that parse incoming data before the user ever sees it. In one documented attack vector, Pegasus exploited a vulnerability in Apple's iMessage service. When iMessage receives a communication, it automatically processes certain data types, image files, audio files, document previews, without any user interaction. The phone does this in the background, invisibly, as a feature designed to improve user experience. Pegasus weaponized this feature. By sending a specially crafted message to the target's phone number, attackers could trigger the vulnerability, execute arbitrary code, and achieve full device compromise, all without the target ever knowing a message had arrived. The phone would receive the malicious payload, execute it, and then delete the message. No trace remained in the inbox. The entire operation could be completed in seconds. Once installed, Pegasus had access to essentially everything. It could activate the microphone and camera silently, without triggering any indicator that they were in use. It could read encrypted messages from applications like Signal and WhatsApp, not by breaking the encryption, but by reading the messages after they had already been decrypted on the device at the point where the text was displayed to the user. It could extract the complete database of text messages, call logs, contacts, emails, and calendar entries. It could track GPS location continuously and historically. It was, in functional terms, a complete and invisible copy of the target's life. The first major public exposure of Pegasus's scope came through the work of Citizen Lab, a research group at the University of Toronto's Monk School, in collaboration with Amnesty International Security Lab. By analyzing the network infrastructure used to command Pegasus deployments, and by forensically examining the phones of suspected targets, researchers were able to map the scale of the operation. What they found in 2021, through what became known as the Pegasus Project, a consortium of 17 international media organizations working from a leaked list of 50,000 phone numbers, was staggering. The numbers on the list were not terrorist suspects. They were journalists, investigative reporters at major international publications, editors at news organizations covering sensitive political topics, human rights lawyers and advocates, opposition politicians, business executives, heads of state, even the family members of dissidents who had already been murdered. Among the confirmed targets were journalists at the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, the New York Times, and Al Jazeera. Azam Ahmed, a former Mexico bureau chief for the New York Times, was targeted. Hadissi Sengiz, the fiancée of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, was found to have had her phone successfully compromised by Pegasus shortly after Khashoggi's murder inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The phone of Khashoggi himself was found to have been targeted in the months before his death. The governments identified as clients included Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, India, Morocco, Rwanda, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Mexico, and others. NSO Group consistently denied that Pegasus was being used for anything other than legitimate law enforcement purposes against genuine threats. The forensic evidence told a different story. The strategic and civilizational implications of Pegasus are worth sitting with carefully because they extend well beyond any individual case. What Pegasus demonstrated, definitively with forensic proof, is that in the 21st century, the concept of secure private communication is largely a legal fiction for anyone who becomes the target of a sufficiently funded state actor. The protections built into modern smartphones, the encryption, the permission systems, the security audits, the patch cycles, are real and genuinely raise the cost of surveillance. But they are not absolute. Against a sufficiently sophisticated adversary with access to zero-day exploits and the financial resources to purchase and deploy them, no consumer device is truly secure. This creates a fundamental asymmetry of power. Wealthy governments and intelligence agencies can buy tools like Pegasus and deploy them against journalists, lawyers, and political opponents who have no equivalent means of defense. The targets cannot see the attack coming. They cannot detect that it has happened. They cannot remove the infection with confidence, because even factory resets may not fully eliminate Pegasus. In November 2021, the United States government added NSO Group to its entity list, effectively blacklisting the company and cutting it off from American technology and investment. Apple filed a lawsuit against NSO Group the same month. The European Parliament launched an inquiry. Courts in multiple countries began examining whether government purchases of Pegasus constituted unlawful surveillance of their own citizens. NSO Group argued, and continues to argue, that it is a technology company, not a spy agency, that it bears no more responsibility for how its tools are used than a gun manufacturer bears for how its weapons are used. It claimed to have terminated contracts with governments found to have abused the technology. The analogy doesn't quite hold, because Pegasus is not a general-purpose tool. It has one function, covert surveillance. The zero-click capability that makes it so powerful has no defensive application. It exists entirely to attack. The deeper lesson of Pegasus may be this. The smartphone revolution that connected humanity and democratized information also created the most intimate surveillance vector in history. We carry devices that know everything about us, and we have constructed an ecosystem of trust around them. Trust in the operating system, trust in the applications, trust in the encryption. Pegasus demonstrated that this ecosystem of trust is a target, not a guarantee. The question now is not whether tools like Pegasus exist. They do. The question is who gets to use them, against whom, and what the world is willing to accept in the name of security. So far, the answer has been quite a lot.